Hey guys, gotta do something a little bit unusual today. I've got this Wahl model 8900 trimmer, and screws are falling out of it because I loosened them already, and it's not working anymore. So it worked for a minute this morning, then it died, so no one's home, nothing happens. So you can repair these, thankfully. This is like a $70 trimmer. I already took the liberty of taking the screws out, and I'll show you what I did. Just to kind of go over the internal components, you have your motor here, and this little doodad here that helps the cutter blades oscillate. You have your switch, and you have a NiCad battery. I believe this is a sub-C size. So what I did, it's a little tough to do one-handed, but you can check the voltage across the battery as so. Put one lead on one end and one lead on the other, and see what you get. After taking this apart, I realized that it looks like, I'll see if I can do this one-handed. So we got about a volt. Not a whole lot. This is a 1.2 volt battery, and it just came on briefly and died again. So now the voltage will probably be low. It's been off for a while. It's probably be lower than what we just measured. Yep, it is. So I'm thinking this is a bad battery, but to confirm, what we'll do is we'll go over to the charger and we'll check the voltage to the pins in the charger to make sure that the charger itself is working before we just condemn the battery. So there's the charger base station. It's plugged into the wall, as you can see. And those two little pins down there, you want to take your multimeter probes and just stick them across those two pins. When I do it, I get about 2 volts. Let's see if we can do this one-handed. Don't know if that's going to happen. Oh, maybe. Here we go. 2.2 volts, sorry. Reason why it's negative is I just have the leads backwards. It's nothing of significance. So we know the charger is working. So with that information, I think we can conclude that our battery is kaput. So that leaves you with two real choices. You can replace the whole trimmer, and as you can see here on Amazon, it's listed for about $70. Keep in mind this is in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, so it's not surprised it's a little more expensive than usual. And this one is not that old. As you can see, I bought this in March of last year. So rather than replace the whole trimmer for $70, I'm gonna order this battery. So they sell a NiCad battery for the 8900. It's a sub-C, some soldering required, but look at the price. That's only $12, $13. That's much more economical given the age of my shaver and that it's relatively new. If yours is 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you might want to consider replacing the whole thing. But in my case, I'm just going to replace the battery and call it a day. So we'll order this and we'll wait for it to come in. Got our new battery in. Looks pretty much identical to the old one, so we got to take the old one out. Now it's soldered in place on one side and screwed in place on the other. So I'm going to take my soldering iron, working around the tripod, and just wet this solder joint right here. I've got a solder sucker, that blue thing in my right hand, that I'm going to use to remove the solder from that joint. Sometimes you have to wet these soldering iron tips slightly to get good thermal conductivity. So what's going on here? Why are we not getting hot? There we go. Okay, just for it to melt. Just kind of do that a couple times. The way these things work is just a piston operated, so you just spring loaded. They're pretty handy. Let's see how we're looking there. pretty darn close to free. That might have done it. Let's see. Plastic stinks. So you can see right there, this contact is just about free. Looks like it loops all the way down the bottom of the battery. Interesting. There's the back. Oh, it goes through. I see now. So it looks like there might be a small hole drilled there. Let's see, do we have one here? Yeah, so there's a small hole in that tab, and the wire just passes through there. So what we'll do instead is we're four hands makes things easier. I'm gonna wet the soldering iron tip again. Okay. Can use my left hand to a much smaller pair of needle nose pliers to extract that wire. Now that wire is pretty long, so you could probably just safely cut it if you wanted to. We got it. So that came out. No collateral damage. I may end up trimming some of it anyway. Now we have to take this screw off here that holds that tab on. Just a Phillips screwdriver, small one. And our battery should be free. The old battery, that is. So there we go. Old. Let's see what the new one looks like. So we have the tab at the bottom that the wire was soldered onto. We have our tab at the top with a hole drilled in it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some soldering flux so we can solder to that tab and make sure things flow freely. If you don't use flux, it'll still work, but it'll just be a lot more work. Get good solder connection. If you use flux, it just flows right in. This is the soldering, I'm sorry, the flux paste I've been using for about 1,000 years. I think my dad gave it to me. Anyway, so let's get our soldering iron out of the way. Let's solder our tab in while it's nice and accessible. So I put just a little bit of flux on that connection, on that hole there. We'll thread our wire through, like so. We'll bend it over. We'll put some solder on there. I always like to have a wet sponge around when I'm soldering. Makes things makes it much easier to clean the tip of the soldering iron. Just gonna apply a little bit of solder to the tip here. That's it. Doesn't take much. I'll show you guys what that ends up looking like. Not much to it. You want to make sure you wipe off the excess soldering paste, because some of them do have a corrosive effect. So we got one end good. I'm just snugging that wire back down into the battery. We just gotta fold this tab over here. So let's get our screw here. Oh, it's running already. Battery's not even charged. Oh, we're shorting out to a post, that's why it's running. Yeah, so it looks like I have to get that right in between that post and thread it in the screw hole. I'm going to do that with two hands. I figured out why it was coming on. So that little ball on that switch, that's what makes the electrical contact. So when you toggle the switch like that, it lines up with the bottom of that screw and makes the contact. So that's why. Don't I feel like a total idiot? I was trying to screw that screw into where that ball is, that hole right there. It's not where it goes. It goes to the post right next door. Jeez. I haven't had my coffee yet today. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so yeah, this wire, that band from the battery go in the post right next door. I took this off just so the motor stopped running because it was getting a little frustrating because it vibrates a lot. Okay, I got everything back together. Seems to work. Now we just gotta charge the battery, and that should be the end of it. I'm gonna let it charge for a while though, because I don't know how discharged this battery is. I know that NiCad batteries, which this is, it's good to let them discharge once in a while, but it's probably pretty weak from the factory. Now, if your shaver's having runtime issues, you might want to clean this switch up there. If that switch gets any water in there or corrosion, that can cause issues with it turning off and on. I'm going to grease this fitting up here with a little bit of lithium grease once I find it. Wasn't too hard to find, the genuine DuPont white lithium grease. Don't make too much of a mess like I am. Like so. Then we'll close things back up and let her charge. Hopefully this bought us a couple more years out of this shaver. I ended up taking the blades off with 2 screws just because it makes the alignment of the motor and the shaft and the housing and everything a little bit easier to get back. Just putting the last screw in the housing down here. Let's give it a test flick. So it does run, it is weak as you can see though. Now is a good time to clean up your cutter blades. Oil them. A lot easier to clean them up like this when they're out of the shaver than when they're not. Mine are in pretty good shape. I did clean them already, so we're just gonna bolt things back together. That'll be it. Shaver's put back together. Now we're gonna go let it charge and see what happens. There you have it, folks. After about pretty much all day charging, works great. Hope you guys found that shaver repair video helpful. You can see it worked pretty nice. I just used it a few minutes ago. Oh, missed a spot down here, but yeah, it works a lot better now with the new battery. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe and stay safe.